Hello, hello. Looks like we're live. And this time around, I'm not going to make the same mistake. I'm going to check my audio, make sure that it's not on mute. Looks like all the settings are good. And volume's all right. Let me know in the chat if you're around, whether or not there's any other issues, and then I'll try my best to fix all these technical things. Gonna wait for a while until more people jump in, get themselves warmed up before I'll start into the actual live stream topic for today. I'm gonna have a look at the chat and see. Okay, it looks like my audio is good. Thank you for clarifying. That's helpful. Give maybe another minute before we jump in. Those of you who are live with me, can say hello in the chat. And tell me where you're from, how you're doing. How's your doing? How's your day going so far? Like, all good. It's been quite a nice weather today, I think, at least here in Malaysia. Not too warm, not too cold. And so far, I think day has been busy, but pretty decent, pretty good myself. I'm pretty excited to get started and want to hear more about your day as well. So we're going to prepare everything here, making sure that my controls are ready to go. And I think we should be able to proceed with the topic. And let's just go with it. Whoever else will join later. And at the same time, we don't want to wait too long for those of you who are already here live with me. Okay, let's start the intro one more time. Hello, hello. Hey, creators. Welcome to another Hustle Savvy show. No name for it yet. Would love to hear suggestions. You can leave in the chat, leave some suggestions in the chat what I should call this live stream show. Trying to aim for at least twice a month of live stream cadence so that I'm showing up more consistently here. And yeah, this is one of the ways I plan to practice my on-camera presence, also connecting with you, the audience, more intimately, checking out the chat so that we can talk to each other, ask questions, answer questions as well. And this way I can also practice my storytelling skills. And a lot of mistakes here they are what they are. It's live. Anything could happen. Last week, by the way, I was telling everyone else, last week when I went live, I actually didn't check my audio and I was on mute for 5 whole minutes. That was fun. It was only until someone in the chat said, hey, maybe you need to check your audio. So imagine that. I need someone in the chat to tell me these things. If not, I'll miss it, you know? So that's interesting. So that's one of the things live streams can do. They can help boost your confidence and also, you know, practice your presentation skills. Everything's off the cuff. A little bit of scripting here and there. I do have some notes right here to make sure that I don't go too off point and go too far from the topic. But other than that, yeah, it's all about improvising. So today, we have observed that growing an audience using educational content can be very powerful. I mean, you hear all these success stories from other multi-million-dollar businesses. You know, we're talking about, you know, other content creators doing 6 figures, 7 figures, doing all sorts of digital products, whether it's online courses, coaching programs, basically teaching other people certain skills, and people pay to get those access to those packaged info products. And so it's not only about free versus paid. Today it's more a little bit of both. So we're going to go into how is it that some of these businesses are able to thrive, and also how do you share knowledge without being an expert, because you see the dark side of things as well. So we're going to go into all those details, and we're also going to see how you can apply education into your own content strategy without crossing the line. How do you know you can talk about certain things, and how far can you push in topics before it's considered too much, especially when you're not an expert, right? And so if we haven't met before, my name is Adam Zainuddin. I am running Hustle Savvy, and my mission here in this YouTube channel is to simplify video for creators. I'm a huge believer in the content creator economy, and it's booming and it's very real, and I think it's gonna stay for a very long time. And I want more people to be empowered to participate in this amazing opportunity that is the creator economy. So my mission is to spread the knowledge about spreading knowledge and also how to do that in a video form, which is mostly what I focus on. And so today you might be wondering, okay, before we go deeper into this, hey Adam, tell me more about this whole online education thing, the e-learning business, right? So we're gonna jump straight ahead to some examples. And right here in this article, there's a lot of them online, by the way. I just picked one of them that seems to have a lot of numbers in just a single page. The one I want to highlight is the e-learning market is projected to grow globally to over 240 billion by 2022. This is from Statista website, but this entire blog has more numbers as well about how it's growing in different ways, and in US and Europe. There's also how it's proven that that e-learning courses can produce 86% fewer greenhouse gases, which is interesting on its own. And these are all actually articles on their own. So I won't be diving deep into that. I'll share a link to this article if you want to dive deeper. But basically, the one thing I want to start off with is the fact that it's a growing industry. It has been on the upward trajectory for the past 5 years or more. And the number, to me, you look at the different websites out there, the numbers will show different billions to it. But that's not relevant. Or, I mean, to you and I, it shouldn't matter too much. We just want to know that, hey, it's big, it's a huge number, it's a huge pie, and all of us can have just a little bit of that pie and make a significant amount of money, and we can continue on expanding our business, maybe even quitting our 9-to-5 jobs and pursuing whatever it is that you want to pursue in this amazing era that we're in right now, the online content creation era. And so I just want to highlight that just to give you a rough idea of how big the market is. And in the future live stream, I'll also dive deeper into, why would anyone consider paying for anything versus, all the free content that's out there. But again, for today, we're just acknowledging the fact that this is a growing market. Okay. And I would like to hear more from your point of view and your own experience in terms of what are the online courses or programs you've enrolled to? What have you gone through and finished, and how's it like? I'd like to know, how much did it cost you if it's coming from your own pocket money? Because I know there are some companies that will give you access to free training as part of a company perk. That'll be interesting to know as well. But for those of you who are spending your own hard-earned cash to get extra training, extra courses or coaching, what kind of training are you getting? And how's your experience been so far? Let me know in the chat. That'll be interesting. I'd like to know whether you like it. How do you compare it to normal education? There's always pros and cons to everything. So I'd like to hear your thoughts. So while you think about it and while you type things out, let's move on to the so-called controversial thing that we're going to discuss today, which is how do you or anyone share knowledge when you're not an expert? One more time, how do you share knowledge when you're not an expert? So I got 4 tips here that I want to cover to make sure that you don't cross the line if you do want to adopt this strategy. And this is drawing from my own experience and some of the mistakes I've made in the past, but also my own observation of my other peers and my mentors that I highly respect in the industry, and some of the things that people do that I don't agree with, and there are some that I really respect and I want to adopt myself and share with you. So the first one is, don't claim to be something that you are not. The first tip, don't claim to be something you're not. Now, this can come from a few angles. But before we can even discuss the word expert, let's talk about what is defined as expertise in the first place. How would you declare someone an expert? Is there a straight answer? Is it about, spending your entire career doing that one thing? Which is very difficult for, especially in the generation we're in right now, where people change jobs quite often and pivot. Like, you probably have tried one thing and at least another thing, right? So you can't claim that you spend your entire career doing that one thing. And I want to draw an example here from a book called Outliers, written by Malcolm Gladwell. And in that book, he does mention about the 10,000 hour rule to achieve mastery. There's a lot of stuff that's being discussed within that book itself, but it was being cited from another research paper that is done by another group of brilliant people who looked into, the whole concept of expertise and honing skills, right? And that research suggests, you need 10,000 hours to be an expert or a master in a very specific skill. And of course, there's also disclaimers. Apparently this is a funny thing. The original research paper also suggests that, hey, it's not just about the 10,000 hours of practice that you put in. It's also about the quality of the teaching that you get. You need good teaching, not just the practice. So that can be a topic on its own. I thought this is funny to put it there to kind of add more context to that whole claim. But it's also about how much focus you actually have and all these other nuances about this 10,000 hour rule. Basically, there's different skills with different degree of difficulty. That's the first thing to consider, right? You can argue that, writing, just pure writing on its own is an easier skill to master. However, when you dive deeper into more expert level or very specific niched writing sectors, I don't know what to call it, that you can branch out, like copywriting, like sales copywriting, right? Writing articles for news. Those are higher level skills. Those are harder to obtain. You need a lot more practice than just the normal writing that you and I can do every day. So that's one example. That's one angle. The other thing to consider is also different skills and different training requires a certain level of intensity. And technically, it's not just about the number of hours. So the 10,000 hour rule, I just want to make sure that I make my point across here. It's just a number that they're trying to average out. Like even in this article here, they do mention that it's just a number. It's more to it than that. But basically, too long didn't read. You need a lot of hours spent to really be good in something. That's the declaration, right? And there are certain quote-unquote shortcuts that you can take. One of them is getting a good teacher or getting a good teaching method or teaching framework, those can help to shorten the length, but you can't escape the fact that you still need to practice what you learn. So it's not just about, getting and absorbing information. It's also about making sure that you apply what you learn, hence the whole 10,000 hour rule. Now, having said that, if you're not an expert, then this might sound obvious. Don't claim to be one. Don't claim to be something you're not. And just simply removing that word from your promotions, from your posts, from whatever content you're making, really helps. I find that it's really interesting because don't mention it, right? Why are you claiming something to be that you're not? And here's the thing, you don't have to forever do it like that. You can kind of, proclaim yourself as an expert at some point. But when you're just starting out and you've getting your feet wet and you're trying to build your reputation online, staying away from that unless you have actual proof. Just don't use that word, right? And this is interesting because this is where the dark side of this whole, hey, the education online space is really interesting and I want to create content that will educate people and then get them to buy my course. But then when you look, especially on Instagram, there's a lot of accounts that claim that they're 19-year-olds and they are business experts. And you're like, what? Hold on. You've been alive for not even 2 decades. And, businesses are really hard to start, like from scratch. Unless you have an extremely unfair advantage, huge trust fund or whatever, and a huge support team rallying behind you. Technically, you're not starting a business from scratch then, right? So there are all these other factors behind the scenes that are not considered when you're doing a claim like this. And then the second thing is, where's your proof? Putting it on bio is one thing, but where is your body of work? Where's your portfolio? How come it's not easy for me to find all your links to your 10 businesses that you have established online? Whether it's an offline store or online store, like where is it? Where is it so difficult? So that's an example that I'm seeing as well, that people making these bold claims, and again, using the word expert or expertise when they haven't earned it yet. So that can already make people doubt your credibility. And it just makes this whole e-learning industry so much shadier, which is a sad thing because I think there's enough power, enough good to make this a powerful movement. But it doesn't help when people abuse it like that. Now, the second thing to consider is that you just need to be one step ahead, because sometimes the other extreme that you fall under is like, oh no, I'm not an expert at all. I don't have 10,000 hours. I don't have certification, or at least I just have one, not like 10, being Asian and all that. And then you're like, oh no, I'm not an expert in anything. I'm not worthy. I shouldn't say anything. I'm just gonna be a lurker. I know a few things, but I'm not confident I should be saying anything. People will get offended. People will correct me if I'm wrong, and the list goes on, right? So this is the other extreme where you don't do anything, where you have potential but you become reserved, and you go to the opposite extreme, and inaction leads to loss of opportunity, and also just you're not able to fulfill your full potential, which is sad. So why do I say you just need to be one step ahead? Is because you can actually measure yourself and be honest about how much experience you actually have. So ask yourself, do you have zero experience in that particular topic? Or do you have some experience? If you have some experience, you would have been at least a step or two ahead compared to someone who's completely starting from zero, right? And so what we want to avoid is also getting into this zone called the curse of knowledge. So the curse of knowledge goes something like this. Whatever you think is trivial or obvious or easy for you does not always mean that it's just as easy for a complete beginner. Whatever you think is easy and trivial to you might be mind-blowingly amazing to a complete beginner that's starting from zero. So that means that you still have value to give. You still have something to share that can help someone else in that particular area or topic, because you have some experience, some level of skill to draw from. You're not starting from zero. And so I want to share an example here, which is from my own course. I did a Trello course on Udemy. Yes, that's right, Udemy. I know people have mixed feelings about it. Love it, hate it. But, it was a test project for me, an MVP, minimum viable product, to test this whole theory of, can we really sell our knowledge, right? Can we package it and then sell it? So I did a ton of research into, the different demands that people have in this Udemy marketplace itself, and also in different Facebook groups, which can be an entirely separate video on its own. And I found a gap. And I also found competitors. So ideally, you don't want to have zero competitors, because then it's unproven that anyone has survived diving into that sector, right? You want to have a little bit of competition, but not too much. And even if there's a lot of competition, you want to make sure that you are providing something that's very unique and you're positioned well enough so that you can get a lot of the attention from that market segment. So from Trello, I used it a lot throughout my career for at least 5 years or so, probably more. And I've used it to, create all sorts of game development projects, websites and app projects, basically working with other cross-functional teams across the entire organization, people with different skill sets, right? So we need to come together and coordinate. And this is one of the easiest project management tools to use. It's not the best. I'm not claiming it's the best, but it's one of the easiest and most friendliest to pick up. But if you don't know certain frameworks and certain ways to apply the different workflows, you might get a little bit lost. So what I've done is basically package that and then teach people how I use Trello and how I apply it in different situations. And that becomes very valuable. And you can see here, ratings are pretty good. I used to be a bestseller. I guess someone beat me to it. I haven't updated this course in a long time, since 2019. And there's almost 6,000 students worldwide enrolled. Almost 6,000 students. And back when I started, I had zero branding, other than Pixel Mystique, which is the overall company that I've registered. There wasn't any marketing to this. I went with the marketplace, validated my idea, did a little bit of research, started recording and packaging the product, edit the videos, put it together, and then sell it. Until today, it is still giving me passive income. Am I a millionaire? No. My point is, that was just a very small risk, very quick way for me to test whether or not I can package knowledge and sell it. So I wasn't too concerned about how much I would make. It was more about, someone with next to zero experience doing something like this, which is me, can I do it? And the answer is yes. And I was focused on a very specific topic. I wasn't trying to be all over the place. I wasn't selling you, look, I'm going to teach you project management 101, and I'm, going to teach you PMP-like levels of frameworks. And even though I have zero certification, I didn't do those kind of empty promises, which is what I mentioned before. So I'm focused more on what I know and avoiding the curse of knowledge, even though it's something as simple as, here's how you create tickets in Trello, and then this is how you move them around. Simple, basic things like that. I still consider that as a lesson. I still package it and wrote the script for it, because to a complete beginner, someone starting from zero, they don't know any of that. So it's valuable to them. And I arrange it and organize it in a way that will make it very useful. So we'll dive deeper into that as well. I just want to show one example, and that is to avoid the curse of knowledge and make sure that you package your knowledge even though you're just one step ahead. You just need to be one step ahead, and you can still contribute. You can still create value and share your knowledge. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3, make it easier to digest. I kind of hinted at this a little bit just now. Basically, when you package your expertise, you package your knowledge. Oops, I used the word expertise there. One of the reasons why it's so important is because of this. I want to quote another content creator here, Chris Do. He says, "We live in a time where we are information rich, but time poor." We live in a time where we are information rich, but time poor. So I can't remember whether or not it was him who came up with that quote directly, or he quoted someone else, but I heard it from him. So what does this mean? Despite all the free information that we have, the Googles out there, the blogs, the Instagram posts, the YouTube videos, podcasts, all of it, digital, and also the physical ones, if you want to include those, they are free, completely free. We are still struggling to be the best version of ourselves. We still struggle to be an expert in anything, right? It's not easy. Why is that? Because there's too much information, and it's all over the place, and not all of them are of high quality, right? And also, not all of them are organized in a way that'll make it easy for you to get from point A to point B, for you to transform yourself and achieve a certain level of whatever topic or skill that you want to master. So this is where it's very important in this tip, where you focus on packaging your knowledge. And it is a skill. It is something that you need to practice. So when I did the online course that I shared with you just now, when I did my Trello course on Udemy, it took me a while to go through their own training material, and they teach you like a little bit about the very basic stuff about how to think about structuring your course topic, how to even, before that, how to even choose a course topic that's suitable for you, and what's out there in the market right now that you potentially want to avoid because it's too competitive, especially if you're still a beginner, you don't have much of an advantage yet. And then how do you narrow down that course topic? It's so crucial to narrow it down, to be more specific and yet useful enough at the same time. So going back to the second tip that I mentioned just now, being at least one step ahead, that means in general, and there are many ways to categorize this, by the way, but in general, to simplify, most skill sets are broken down into 3 main categories or levels. First is being a beginner, a complete beginner. Second is being intermediate level, and then third is being advanced level, right? So you first ask yourself, where are you at roughly? How do you feel, right? And then you should ideally help the person who is one level lower than you, right? So if you're intermediate level, you should be helping the beginners. Even if you're advanced, you can also have the option to help the either intermediate or beginner levels. And then from there, you know your target audience at a deeper level, because now you are narrowing down even further. And this way you can readjust your level of difficulty and all the course subtopics within it, all the different chapters within your course or whatever product that you're doing, right? And this way you make it easier for people to digest. So the same thing goes with free content as well. When you are making content online and you're sharing your knowledge through those content, you need to put yourself in the shoes of your audience. What is it that they are looking for? What are they struggling with? And with the short period of time that they have, depending on the platform as well, there's a lot of other factors that can influence how you're going to plan your content, how you're going to structure your content. For example, if you're doing short form content, it needs to be very fast. It needs to be, in a certain flow. It has to have like a lot, depending on the content, you might have a lot of text and voiceover and sound effects and all that. If you're doing longer form content like this one, I am doing it in a more conversational style. I'm sitting down with you, having a conversation. We're just relaxing, chillaxing, and we're talking about certain topics together. And then I'm going to share some tips so that you can benefit. So that is also going to influence how you package the content, right? I might even have slides here because I have more time to share more with you. And the takeaway there is going to be different. It's not about which one is better. It's about knowing who's your audience, which platform they're in right now, how they consume the content, and then adjusting to what kind of content you want to share with them and how you're going to package your knowledge. So I want to share another quote here. Gain clarity through articulation. Gain clarity through articulation. That's from David C. Baker. He's an author, speaker as well. And what he's trying to explain here is when you take whatever knowledge you have in your head and you have to teach it to someone, that is the ultimate form of learning. And it's not just about learning as the student themselves, but it's also the ultimate form of learning for you, the teacher. This is an interesting thing because we have a lot of knowledge in our head, but if we don't apply it, we start to forget. So one of the best ways to continuously know a lot of things is by teaching it, because then you're forced to dig into your memory. And not only that, you're also forced to organize and rethink about certain concepts and information in the right order and in the right form. So that process makes your brain work harder, and that way you will, along the process, discover that, oh yeah, so that's how I understood that thing. Oh yeah, I knew more about this than I thought, right? So gain clarity through articulation. So when you teach something that you benefit as well, because then you're able to understand more about that topic. You might even discover that, hey, you might be reminded of how far behind you are in terms of mastery. Remember, we talked about the 10,000 hours, right? Maybe you just reached 5,000, you're halfway there, maybe. I don't know who tracked these hours, but let's just say, right? And then by teaching, you get feedback as well. So it's not only feedback about, people ask you more questions and you thought to yourself, hey, I thought I already covered that. I thought I explained it well enough. I guess there's a few things to observe here as I'm teaching. Number one, the way I'm explaining things may not be the best. So that's a skill on its own. And then I, as a teacher, would then observe that and then take note and try out different ways to maybe tell a story, maybe to use video, maybe to use audio, maybe to write things on the board, right? The other thing I'll observe from there is that some of these questions are very difficult for me to answer. Maybe, just maybe, I've realized that there's one part that I have not learned myself. So this is, again, going to trigger you as you teach people. You're going to trigger all these different signals to make sure that you yourself polish your own knowledge as well and continue that path of mastery. And as we all know, the more you upgrade yourself, the higher you can charge, and also the more influence you'll get, because even if you don't charge anything and you're purely making free content, you have a lot more to say. People will notice that you are improving the way you're saying things, and that way your influence will spread, because people will then acknowledge, hey, this is a good piece of free content, whether it's on Instagram, YouTube, whatever. I'm going to share this more. And then those other people who receive it, this is really good. I agree. Thank you, friend. They're going to share it more. So again, it's only going to benefit you and your influence and your income levels, if you want to put it that way, if you share your knowledge and keep practicing it. Whew. That's a long one for number 3. Let me know in the chat how you guys feeling so far. Let me check the chat real quick before I move on to point number 4. And let's see here. Hello, Fana was not there. Live stream title option number 1, Tonight Show with Hustle Savvy. Okay. Gonna write it down somewhere. Shamsul MJ, hey, he says Azizan Osman is an expert. I'm laughing because of the emoji, okay? I'm gonna leave it there. Answer to the question on online learning experience. Fana was not there, said, took a course on how to be a Pilates instructor. Love being able to learn what I want at this age from my bedroom during COVID, during lockdown. Interesting. Yeah, so during lockdown is one of the most difficult times for any of us. And I think that's also when we saw a lot of activity online, obviously. A lot of creators started to rise up. The existing ones and also new creators come up. And they see like, okay, some people come out because they were desperate. There were a lot of people losing jobs, and there's a lot of uncertainties as well. Some people just cannot conduct their previous business, and they had to evolve. So it was an interesting time, I would say. We're still technically in some sort of pandemic, endemic, whatever you want to call it. It's not over yet, and the world is opening up here and there, depending where you live. But there's still some SOPs in place. So things are starting to, quote unquote, go back to normal, and we're seeing the decline again in terms of activity online, which is expected. People want to travel and all that. But you'll see that from once the dust settles, which are the remaining creators who started during the pandemic that are still actively practicing what they are doing and just continuing to be content creators. That'll be interesting. I think there'll be a report on that. I just had to dig it up somewhere. Awesome. Thank you all for the chat. Hope you're all loving it. Maybe put some fire emoji in the chat if you are getting value from this live stream so far. That'll be cool. Okay, now we went through 3 points just now. And now point number 4, the 4th tip, is to tell your story. So how do you share knowledge without being an expert? You tell an authentic, honest story. And this is where the whole human connection part of the journey really clicks, because if you're being honest about your past experience, about your past mistakes, your own struggles, and how you overcome the struggle, this is where people will start to form that connection with you. Because, for example, you're trying to learn how to run proper marathons, and you're a complete beginner, right? And then you do it yourself, and then in one of the videos, the instructor said, oh yeah, have you ever run a few laps without warming up? This is what happens. And then you're watching it and you go, yeah, I know exactly how that feels, right? So by connecting to a previous mistake that a lot of us beginners make, you're forming that connection, because now you're humanizing the relationship, and then you see eye to eye. You know that, hey, at some point, we all started from zero, and that's okay. And so when you tell a story like that, people love to hear more. People love to hear a hero's journey. And if you don't know what a hero's journey is, it's basically a structure, a format that writers use a lot in Hollywood movies, TV shows, even books and novels. I won't go into the actual detail of how it actually works. It's probably a topic for another video. But basically, the hero's journey is showing you a few acts where in the first act, you identify the hero, and then he's a reluctant hero, usually. Everything's normal for him, just staying in his farm or whatever is normal. And then suddenly something happens, there's a call to action, and then now the hero has to rise up and solve this problem and face the antagonist. And then throughout that journey, he'll meet a guide. The guide will tell him or her how to deal with this problem and how to succeed. And from there, there's all the conflict and the struggle to either obtain this new power, this new solution, this new weapon, to fight the bad guy and deal with this problem fix this problem. And then you reach a climax, and then usually there's a huge confrontation of some sort, and then there's a resolution at the end. And now the main character has fulfilled his journey. He's become an actual hero. He started from zero, and then now in the end, he is a hero. And so if you think about it, a lot of stories happen in that way. And when you tell a story about your own experience and how you started from zero, people will relate better, and people would see the honesty because you're willing to admit your past mistakes. That's the other thing about authenticity. I can never say that word properly, I swear. That's the thing where people would be more willing to learn from someone who is like just as quote unquote flawed as they are. Okay, let's put it this way, because it's a lot harder for anyone to relate when they look at someone who's like super pro and they're like, oh man, you know, that guy right there, perfect. Check out his Instagram. I'm really raining on Instagram again. Check out his Instagram. Oh, everything's shiny. All that luxury, all that. Oh, I don't get it. I can't relate. Like whatever you're saying, you know, I don't vibe that way. Yeah. I'm not gonna do anything. I'm gonna look around and check you out, but yeah, that's about it. And then another example would be, you know, the difference between those of us who are stuck in traffic versus someone who has a helicopter and can just fly off. And that's very interesting, right? Because then you're like, what does the helicopter person know anything about the people who are stuck on the ground in traffic? We can't relate. We're like worlds apart, right? My problems are different from yours. Yeah. So tell your story, be honest, and share this connection that you have. And this way you are coming from the place of the student yourself. You are a learner yourself. You're sharing your learning journey with your audience, and this way they get to benefit and connect with you on a different level. And you don't have to always be perfect and show that you got everything under control. I got it all figured out. Guys, this is how you make your first million. But you haven't done it yet. So now you're pretending to be someone you're not. And this whole thing will just fall apart eventually. And then people will call you out when you find out. Right? And so despite me joking around about it, I do want to say that, you know, I have fallen into this trap myself by using certain words that might have rubbed people the wrong way, and also position myself in a certain way that makes people think that, you know, hey, you're saying this, but you don't have the proof. And sometimes it's interesting because I never realized it. Sometimes I'm like, oh, wait, but I have this other channel that's doing something else and it has more subscribers. And I realize, oh no, looks like no one understood that. No one could see that journey. No one could see the connection. And then that causes a lot of confusion, etc., etc. So my too long didn't read suggestion is, you know, be careful with how you position yourself. Don't have to go through all the stress of being perfect and be an expert all the time. Be yourself. Be more humble. Take the position of the learner. Tell your story, and then people will connect with you much better. Okay, so to round things up one more time, tip number 1, don't claim to be something that you're not. Don't declare yourself an expert until you are ready and you have enough proof that you are an expert. Tip number 2, you just need to be one step ahead. So the other extreme of being completely reluctant to share your knowledge and afraid to share your knowledge is something to be avoided as well. So as long as you are aware that you are at least one step ahead of other people, you can help those people who are starting from complete zero. Tip number 3, make it easier to digest. One of the most valuable things you can do is to carefully package information, carefully package your knowledge and experience so that it's easy for the other person to digest. And right there, you are creating a lot of value already and people can learn from you. And then finally, tell your story. Be honest about where you come from. How are you able to deal with all the struggles? These are all golden nuggets that can help you to connect better with your audience, and this bring another level of trust that is a lot harder to earn. But when you start nurturing it from the beginning and you're humble about it, people can connect with you a lot better. All right, so those are 4 tips on how to share knowledge without being an expert. And as we go towards the end of our segment here, I would like to know, please share in the chat, what would you like to learn next from me? I'm looking for more topics for my live stream. I got a few ideas, but I really want to hear from you. This way I can help you better. And yeah, feel free to write in the chat. And for those excuse me, drink some water first. What you type that? Stay hydrated. If you're watching the replay, feel free to also comment any suggestions. I read all the comments, and I try my best to respond to all of them. One more sip of water before I check the chat again. Oh, good morning, Joanne. Joanne's always commenting on my stuff. Really appreciate you. Good morning to you, Joanne, but good night or good evening for the rest of us here in Malaysia. We're the other side of the world. Joanne is asking, can you repeat the name of the book you recommended on the topic of YouTube? Let me see. Oh, yeah, got it right here. I'll leave it in the comment section. Sorry, or description, or both. This is the YouTube Formula by Daryl Eaves. This is definitely one of the best books I've ever read. It goes on to talk about not only the YouTube algorithm, but also there's a lot of case studies here. So if you don't know, Daryl Eaves is one of the people who's working with Mr. Beast, and helped him to formulate some of his strategies. And they're always like geeking out about YouTube data analytics to understand. They're really obsessed about people's behavior, basically, and how they react to the different, thumbnails, imagery, titles, topics, basically everything that every YouTube creator should be obsessed about. And so he gives a few examples of that in his book, the YouTube Formula. Link will be in the description and in the comments. And I highly recommend his book. It makes you rethink how content should be made on YouTube. And it's one of the reasons why I am exploring live streams, actually, and also focusing more about branding. And specifically, there is an example in this book about primal branding, which is another book altogether, written by someone else. I forgot his name. So sorry. But basically, back in the day when YouTube had their own YouTube certification program, I think they've stopped it now. They ask creators to basically go through the book, Primal Branding. So that's another interesting topic for another day. But basically, in that book, it explores the psychology behind what makes people transform themselves into raving fans. How do they form tribes? How do they, for lack of better words, how do they become a cult? And there's all this different rituals and behaviors that you as the tribe leader subtly or not so subtly invoke, and then keep on practicing, repeating, to the point where people will start to resonate and connect with you and see some patterns. It's all very subtle. Like if you explain it, you're like, that doesn't work that way. Yeah, but when you start observing it in other ways and you go through the book, apparently, there's all these things that happen subconsciously in our mind when we are a fan of something or someone, or maybe even a band or a group of people, right? There are certain things there that you can apply when you're creating your own online brand or your own YouTube channel as well, which you can start to implement, and you'll see a difference when it comes to people coming back to your content. So that's one of the struggles that I'm facing right now, to be honest, on YouTube, is getting back people to come and check out my channel and my videos more often. So my content right now is very search driven. So a lot of times people would type in a question, I would answer it in the form of a video. I keep looking for more questions that people are doing. I do all this research, and then and I'm very good at making sure that I don't linger too long in my short form videos or medium form videos, basically non-live stream stuff. And that way I give them straight answers, straight to the point. What that means is it's very efficient. It's like a factory. And there's a side effect to that. I get a lot of views, but I don't get returning views as often based on YouTube analytics. So that's why the whole rethinking of how I'm doing my content moving forward, including more storytelling, including more primal branding, mentioning certain things, doing certain things in a certain ways, even though I get less views in certain things. But I think the stickiness to the small group of you who are actually into my content will increase because we have a better connection. So that's the that's the reason why I'm doing more live streams and other things that you'll see in my future videos, as far as my experiment and from what I've learned from YouTube formula and primal branding. Oh wow, that was a very long-winded answer, but I hope that helped all of you listening right now. Checking the chat one more time. Had a big stage glitch on a recent live show and got good comments on it as it showed the mishap could happen to everyone. Oh yeah, thank you for sharing that, Joanne. Yeah, sharing mistakes online is one of the best things because again, it shows that you're human, right? And then how do you react to it is what defines your character, and that kind of like branding to some extent. You might joke about it, you might, I don't know, completely freak out online. And then there'll be a very entertaining scenario for your audience. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, thank you for all the comments, Joanne. Happy to see you live. Oh, yes. Happy to see you here live in the chat as well. And really grateful that all of you are here. I hope you are getting a lot of value from all this. And I hope now moving forward, you have all the tools and confidence necessary for you to reframe your mind and making sure that, hey, I'm not an expert, but I can share certain things that I'm confident in. I have just enough knowledge that I can share with my audience, and that's the value that I bring to them. And I can actually make sure that I'm very careful with the promise I make so that I don't overpromise. What you want to do is under promise and over deliver, and that's fine, right? So make sure that you are being honest with yourself about where you're at, and then making sure that you stick to the things that you're already proven that you've done and that you know will happen. You can replicate those results. All right, so gonna stay a bit longer in the chat to have extra time to talk about anything else. Feel free to ask me any questions. It's Q&A time. Happy to try my best to answer your questions. Just put this book back while you do that. One cool thing about live streams, by the way, immediately when the replay is live, I can't really adjust it, but after some processing, a few hours after that, you can actually edit your live stream. So my previous live stream last week had 5 minutes in the beginning that it was muted, right? So what I did was after it went live and YouTube has processed it as a replay, I quickly edited the first few minutes out. But even after I save those edits, it takes them as fast as a few minutes to anywhere between a few hours, right? Because I don't know, it takes some time. There's a lot of videos being processed. So after that, if you actually watch the video or replay again, you won't find those early muted 5 minutes anymore. Aha! Which is why you should always be online and hang out in the chat and hang out with me live, because you'll never catch some mistakes anymore. And I did that mostly because 5 minutes is a bit too long. People will click away from the video anyway. So yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Joanne. All right. If anyone has any other suggestions, I think so far I've gotten a suggestion from Joanne about tips for building a community. That's an interesting topic altogether. Maybe I'll touch on the primal branding next week. That'll probably be good. Any other suggestions? I'm still here. Feel free to ask any questions. I'll wait for a few minutes. I'm also remembering that live streams have a bit of a lag to it. So every time I say something, if you guys actually tap anything in the chat, it will take a while to pop up. This is what it is. Let me just check real quick for any messages here. Alrighty, I think that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining me live. I hope once again that you have a lot of fun with me and learn a thing or two about how to share knowledge without being an expert. Hopefully those 4 tips will be useful for you, and I want to see what kind of interesting things are you going to apply as part of your journey. And I am actually using one last thing before I say bye-bye. Yes, Joanne, I'm using YouTube, but I'm also using OBS. So OBS is another software that's separate, that's connected to my YouTube account, and there's some fancy things I can do with it, like this. And I can do this. You can also use a software called StreamYard, so that's pretty cool. But it's a paid software if you want to use StreamYard. Maybe I'll use that once I have a bit more revenue to spare in the future, but for now I'm using OBS. Anyway, that's all for today. Just to wrap up, I hope you are enjoying I hope you enjoyed live stream and you're able to share your knowledge without the worrying fear of not being an expert, and being able to share knowledge without crossing the line, and making sure that you are following through with your promises to your audience, knowing where is the boundaries you shouldn't cross, being humble, sharing your story, and also bringing a lot of value packaged correctly so that it's easy to digest. I'll see you all in the next live stream. Take care. Bye bye.